There's a strange kind of silence that follows the end of a marriage. It's not the absence of sound, the television still hums in the corner, the kettle still whistles on the stove, cars still pass by on the street below. It's the silence of not being thought about. The silence of not being missed. That's the kind of silence I live with now. We bought this house 15 years ago. Peter and I. A two-story colonial with faded blue shutters and a crooked fence that never quite closed properly. I fell in love with it instantly. The creaky floors, the deep clawfoot tub, the lilac bushes lining the driveway. Imagine all the springs we'll spend here, I said, squeezing Peter's hand, my heart too full to fit inside my chest. He smiled, but his mind was already elsewhere, calculating mortgage payments, work schedules, future renovations. That was always Peter. Practical. Logical. And me? The dreamer, the feeler, the one who thought love was enough to bridge every gap between us. We were young enough to believe that wanting something badly enough made it real. I see now how naive that was. The first few years were good. We filled the house with mismatched furniture from yard sales and painted the walls colors we'd later regret. We fought over trivial things, how to hang the curtains, whether the toaster should live on the counter or in the pantry, and made up quickly, apologies whispered against each other's skin in the dark. I wanted children more than anything. Peter, he said he did too. But there was always some reason to wait. A big project at work. A promotion just out of reach. A renovation we couldn't quite afford. By the time we started trying in earnest, it was too late. 3 miscarriages. Each one a tiny, private funeral only we attended. Each one carving a deeper chasm between us that neither of us knew how to cross. Peter stopped looking at me after the 3rd one. Stopped touching me. Stopped laughing the way he used to. I didn't blame him. Not really. How could I, when I barely recognized myself anymore? It happened slowly at first, the drifting apart. Like a boat slipping its moorings in the middle of the night, unnoticed until it was already too far gone to call back. He started working late. Stopped coming home for dinner. Stopped noticing the small ways I tried to hold us together, the fresh flowers on the table, the new recipes I tried and failed to impress him with. I found the texts one night while he was in the shower. Innocent enough at first. Small, flirty, full of inside jokes I wasn't a part of. Her name was Rachel. She worked with him, a new project manager, fresh out of grad school, all bright eyes and easy laughter. I confronted him, of course. I wasn't a complete coward. Sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug just for something to hold on to, I said his name once, quietly. Peter. He didn't look up from his phone. There's someone else, isn't there? The silence that followed was answer enough. He rubbed his temples, sighing like the weight of my question was somehow more burdensome than his betrayal. I never meant for it to happen, Hannah, he said. I laughed. A brittle, ugly sound that tasted like blood in my mouth. People don't just fall into affairs, Peter. You made a choice. He set the phone down and finally met my eyes. I'm not happy, he said. There it was. Plain and simple. I wasn't enough. I hadn't been enough for a long time. And the worst part was? I already knew. We tried counseling for about 3 miserable sessions. But sitting on a stiff leather couch, airing out 15 years of wounds in front of a stranger, only made everything feel more broken. Peter moved out 2 weeks later, into a sleek 1-bedroom apartment downtown. The kind with shiny floors and no soul. I stayed in the house with the lilac bushes and the peeling shutters because someone had to. Because I couldn't imagine leaving the place where every version of myself still lived. The house felt too big without him. Every room an echo chamber of things unsaid. I slept on the couch for months because our bed felt like a betrayal. I let the dishes pile up in the sink. I stopped opening the curtains. Grief is a strange thing. It clings to you. Sinks into your skin. Turns ordinary mornings into unbearable marathons. Some days. I wondered if it would have been easier if he had died instead of left. At least death carried sympathy with it. People knew what to say then. But divorce? Divorce was a slow, public unraveling. And everyone watched. The first time I saw Peter with her was at the grocery store. I was standing in the produce aisle, debating tomatoes, when I heard his laugh, that easy, careless laugh he hadn't given me in years. There they were. Peter and Rachel. Hand in hand, like teenagers, like nothing bad had ever happened to them. She was pretty. In a polished, effortless way I had never quite managed. Her hair shone under the fluorescent lights. She wore high heels to buy groceries. I stood frozen, a bruised peach clutched in my hand, invisible in the way that only discarded wives know how to be. Peter saw me. Our eyes met across bins of apples and squash. He gave me a small, tight smile, an apology, a farewell, a shrug, before turning back to Rachel, who slipped her arm through his and said something that made him laugh again. I left my cart abandoned by the spinach and drove home shaking so badly I almost ran 2 red lights. I crawled into bed fully clothed and didn't come out for 2 days. But life, stubborn, messy, relentless, kept moving forward whether I wanted it to or not. The seasons turned. The lilacs bloomed. And somehow, inch by inch, I began to live again. I repainted the living room a soft gray. I tore up the dying rose bushes Peter had planted years ago and replaced them with wildflowers that didn't care if they were loved to thrive. I started teaching art classes again at the community center, finger painting with toddlers who didn't know how to hide their emotions and teenagers who wore their hearts on their sleeves. It wasn't much. But it was a beginning. One afternoon, after a long class where a 6-year-old had proudly painted his shoes instead of the canvas, I came home to find a for sale sign hammered into the lawn next door. A man was standing on the porch, wrestling with a stubborn lock. He was older, maybe mid-40s, with messy brown hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. "Need a hand?" I called, surprising myself. He grinned sheepishly. "That obvious, huh?" I walked over, took the key from him, and showed him the trick, lift the door slightly before turning. The door swung open with a groan. He laughed. "You're a lifesaver." "Just a neighbor," I said. "Hannah." "Ben," he said, offering his hand. It was a small moment. A nothing moment. But sometimes, nothing moments are where healing begins. Ben moved in a week later with too many books and a shy golden retriever named Charlie who barked at the mailman but loved belly rubs. We became friends, slowly, cautiously. We drank coffee on my porch, talked about everything and nothing. He was divorced too, 5 years ago, and wore his scars with a quiet dignity I admired. He never pushed. Never asked for more than I could give. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the scent of lilacs filled the air, he turned to me and said, "You know, you're allowed to be happy again." I looked at him, really looked at him, this kind, patient man who had shown up exactly when I needed him most, and something inside me shifted. I didn't know if I was ready for love. Didn't know if I would ever trust anyone the way I once trusted Peter. But maybe happiness didn't come all at once. Maybe it came in pieces. In shared cups of coffee. In dogs who loved unconditionally. In neighbors who knew how to fix broken locks and broken hearts. Maybe happiness wasn't something you found. Maybe it was something you built, one stubborn, hopeful day at a time. It's spring again now. The lilacs are blooming. I stand on the porch, coffee in hand, watching as Charlie chases a squirrel across the yard and Ben pretends not to laugh. I'm not the woman I was when Peter left. I'm something new. Something stronger. Something softer. And as the breeze carries the sweet scent of lilacs around me, I whisper a small, fierce promise to myself. You are enough. I always have been.